Hi, this is Trev. Welcome to my blog. I'm always being asked loads of questions about fabrication, metal shaping and welding. What I thought I'd do is compile a video to answer the most asked questions. So this is what this video is about. I've done my usual thing and made it far too long. So what I've decided to do is cut it in half. So this is going to be part one. I really hope you enjoy this video. The only really suitable thing I can find for this demonstration is this handmade sill section I did a while back. And incidentally, if you're interested in watching a video on how I made this sill section, I'll put a link in the video description so you can go and watch that, how I made this section using a handmade former. Getting back to this video, what I thought would be the best thing to do would be to cut 3 holes exactly the same in this and then weld them up. I'll put them along this edge here so that it's a uniform edge, so each hole will be exactly the same size and same shape. I've bent a piece of metal around my former. I'm going to fit this from the inside. I'm not going to fit it from the outside because if I put it on the outside then we're going to have a big step up that we've got to try and lose. And the only way you can lose that is by hitting the panel down afterwards. Not ideal. So what I used to do is I always used to overlap these joints. So traditionally brazed joints on panel work would be overlapped because traditionally there wouldn't be enough strength without that lap. If you just butted it up and brazed it in, yeah, it will all hold in there fair enough, but there certainly won't be the strength there would be if you welded it in. If you leave a bit of an overlap, and we're only talking a couple of millimeters, then that puts massive amounts of strength back into that joint. I fitted the patch panel from behind, ensuring that the overlap was pretty much equal all the way around. I haven't got to be overly fussy about these things because this is a far more vague and forgiving repair really. You will notice that there'll be a bit of a lazy flame pattern to the torch. That's because I'm not burning pure acetylene. It's just like a mixture of different gases. It burns hotter than propane, but certainly not as hot as acetylene. Okay for brazing, but not for welding. But that's a completely different thing altogether to what I'm doing at the moment. So there's 2 different types of brazing rod. We've got silicon bronze and brass. So I'll start with the brass ones. So the brass ones are used for gas welding, as in oxygen and acetylene. Shouldn't really use these for TIG welding as far as I'm concerned, because what happens is you tend to release the zinc from the brass and that stuff's terrible to breathe in. So these are really only for oxygen and acetylene welding, I would say personally. Not knowing all the ins and outs, but that's what I would say personally. They got like little nicks going all the way along, and in those little nicks is the flux, so they kind of wipe the flux over. It gives the rod a kind of pinky colour. So these are brass, which is copper and zinc alloy. So down here we've got silicon bronze. So silicon bronze is a copper stroke silicon. I think it may have something else in it, but that's basically copper and silicon alloy. Now this can be used for MIG welding or TIG welding. If it's a MIG welding, obviously it comes on a roll 0.8, I think normally 0.8 millimeters, and you can MIG weld with this, and you can also TIG weld it. This is a 1.6 rod, which I find a real nice size, and so I use this for TIG welding and that for oxygen acetylene welding. That's with the gas on. Turn the oxygen on and you'll see the flame change colour, and there'll be like a cone on the inside. See that little cone developing? Well, the cone is sort of split into two. And what you got to do is keep applying the oxygen, so keep turning the oxygen up until that cone becomes one on the end. And if I was burning pure acetylene, then this cone would be far smaller and the flame would be tighter as well. I want to give it a bit more actually, it's a bit cold. Just turn the gas up and then the oxygen afterwards to balance the flame. All cleaned up with a grinder and a clean and strip wheel. From a structural point of view, the repair's good. The brass has flowed into the joint. It's a lap joint. It's really strong. There isn't going to be any problem with that. From a corrosion perspective, it's sealed up with brass. If it was to rust from behind, it would have to rust all the way through until you saw any evidence on the outside. However, we do have a bit of a gap here. If you couldn't get from behind to seal this up, this gap would become a massive rust trap very quickly, and you'd have corrosion set up between the two panels extremely quickly. Biggest problem I've got with this is heat distortion. Heat distortion in itself, not a problem. As I've shown you in the past, I can easily planish it out, do a bit of heat shrinking here and there and get that absolutely spot on. Problem I've got is I've got major amounts of heat distortion, bit of oil canning going on here. So what I need to do is I need to give this a good planish. Problem with planishing it is it's a lap joint. If I put a dolly behind there and start hitting it with a hammer, the patch from underneath will try and push up through the outer skin. We'll have a great big ridge all the way around here, stuck up proud, meaning that we won't have a flush repair anymore. We'll be in all sorts of trouble and I'll be chasing my tail. This is why I no longer perform this kind of exercise, and I haven't done since about 1987, I suppose it must be. Anyway, just as an experiment, I thought, well, we'll try the same thing again, but this time I'll use silicon bronze using the TIG welder. So I'll cut another hole out and I'll braze this in using silicon bronze. Not really that familiar with brazing silicon bronze, so what I'm going to do is have a bit of a play with the TIG welder, see how far I can take the amps down to try and perfect a cooler repair, see if we can get rid of some of that heat distortion. Let's do some TIG brazing. So I'll fire up my TIG welder. One great feature of this TIG welder is that it goes all the way down to 5 amps. Only one thing more frustrating than the welder not being powerful enough, it's that it won't go low enough and you end up blowing holes and temperature's just too hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the welder up at, I reckon, about 15 amps to start with. I'll weld at about 20 amps on a single thickness piece of metal. So if I try 15, see how well the silicon bronze actually melts into the surface of the steel. Got my silicon bronze brazing rod. I think it's a 1.6. I've got a lanthanated tungsten 1.6. I've just put sharp end on the end, as sharp as I can get it. I don't know what degree of angle that is, but it's as sharp as I can get it to a nice point. I use my belt sander to sharpen that up. So 15 amps on the TIG welder. Let's see if I can lay a nice bead. What I'm looking for is I'm looking to get it hot enough so that the silicon bronze flows. So it needs to flow but I don't want it so hot that when I flip it over I can see deformation of the steel surface from the other side. That would indicate that it's got too hot. Well, not bad for a first go from the top surface. I was happy then till I buried the tungsten into the workpiece. Real nice little flow going along there. And the back side, very nice. If I'm welding single skin 20, I'm going to do a lap joint. I'm going to need a hell of a lot more to do a lap joint. I'll do 25. I'll find another piece of metal, overlap this, do it at 25. Feel like it's still not quite enough. Do I want to really crank it up any more than 25? I'll give it some 30. Well, at 30 I can instantly tell that the product is flowing superbly well compared to 25, so amps really are all important, and I'm able to move along at a nice steady pace here without it feeling like it's getting too hot. It's all about the heat, guys. It wants a bit of heat. I kind of thought this stuff, because it's a lower melting point, I kind of felt like it would flow at a lot lower, but it doesn't. Okay, so that's as it comes. Mr. Blobby at 25 amps and a far better braze at 30. Much nicer. Might even be able to go a bit more. So there we have it. Fairly neat braze. Flows really nicely actually. Problem is there's far too much heat for this panel. So I had to pump 30 amps to get it to flow nicely, which is resulted in quite a bit of heat spread. Couldn't really move any faster than I was. Major distortion. I can't really see much advantage over gas brazing, to be fair. I really can't. Okay, I've removed all of the shrank parts from it. Just sort of like to emphasise that when you're working on a convex panel and you do welding, it nearly always shrinks. And when you have difficulty trying to get this shrink back out again, you often find it's popping in and out oil canning, and sometimes it can be quite confusing as to whether you've stretched it too much, so you don't know whether it's stretched or it's shrank. It almost kind of feels like it's got a bit of a mind of its own. Well, 9 times out of 10 it will be because it's still shrank and you just haven't put enough compression on the material to stretch it back out again. See, I've got a couple of little dimples here, tiny couple of little low spots, but like I say, no high spots, and the inside is pretty smooth as well, look, so there's no lip there to act as a rust trap. I think that's good enough for this demonstration. I thought I'd just carry out 2 last experiments before I wrap this brazing thing up. So what I've done is I've butted up 2 pieces of metal, brazed them together, and another 2 pieces, what I've done is I've put a bit of a gap between there. The reason I've done this is because when I worked in the accident repair trade and we used to MIG braze everything, that was the procedure, was to leave a gap. So what I've done is I've finished my brazing and I've ground the outer face off as it would be if you were repairing a car, if you were putting a patch in a car. So I've ground it off and I've ground it flush, and this is what the one looks like now with the gap. So I've ground it off, it's got a gap, and the other side, quite interesting, it's got like a tiny little bead there sticking out. Not very big. I expected it to be hanging down a bit further than that. I've got a little bit here that's hanging down quite far. It's a fairly neat little bead as well. I think maybe if I'd upped the power, I think I upped it to about 26 amps. Perhaps I should have done that all the way along. Anyway, we'll do a strength test. I'm not going to bother with the one that I butted up because it just fell apart in my hands the second I ground it off. Just holding it in my hands and it just fell apart. So that kind of goes to show you how dangerous it would be to butt something up and there's absolutely no strength to it at all. Like I say, it just literally fell apart in my hand, and it might not fall apart on the vehicle. You grind it off and you think it was absolutely fine, there'd be no strength in it at all. So what I'm going to do is perform a strength test on this. I'm not too sure what's going to happen, but we'll just see if leaving that gap has made this much stronger. Well, it's 100 times stronger, but it's still splitting open. I'll try it just one more time. I've just put a slightly wider gap in it. So this is the top side of the weld, and this is the underside. What a complete mess each side. That's at 26 amps with a massive gap. I must admit it was as much as I could do to get that filler going in there quick enough to plug that gap up. It was just dropping straight through to the other side. So this is the underside, this is the top side. I'll grind this off, we'll strength test it. I don't think it's going to do much good, to be honest, but we'll try it. So that's the top side ground off. That's the underside left as it was. That's impressive how strong that is compared to a completely butted joint. It's incredible. You see it's actually fell down the side of the braze, not on it, meaning that the joint had more strength than the steel surrounding, but it's a bit inconsistent, but so was my welding, to be fair. But that's taken a hell of a pounding, which just goes to show how strong the material is, provided it's there in the first place. But none of this convinces me to think about switching over to brazing instead of welding. The problem with this is you've still got that bead. If you wanted to planish it, the bead would still deform the material as you were trying to straighten things out. You just wouldn't be able to do it properly. But it's impressive still. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you got something out of that. And there will be a part 2 coming much quicker than you might think. Just before I wrap this video up, I'd just like to say something quickly. I've had several messages about not receiving notifications to when my videos have been uploaded. Now, I appreciate I haven't been uploading that often lately. Hopefully things are going to change there. But I think a lot of this is to do with YouTube messing with the settings. So if you go to the little bell icon, just make sure that bell is ringing, because if it isn't, you won't get notifications to your favourite YouTubers, and hopefully I'm in there somewhere. So before I go anyway, I'd like to make a few channel shout outs to some of my favourite YouTube contributors, and they're also quite good friends of mine. So first up, Jack Hammer with Viper Powder Coating.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel.
So Jack Hammer, yes, that is his real name, Jack Hammer. How fantastic. Well, Jack is a radio presenter for the Electric Radio Show in New York, and he's only gone and turned his hobby and his passion into a business. Not only that, he's moved from New York to Florida to do it, and he's opened up Viper Powder Coating. He's also got his own YouTube channel, Viper Powder Coating, and a cracking little channel it is too. He's only just started it up, and he's showing you all about powder coating and what he's going to be doing in his business. And he's such a fantastic presenter. It's worth just watching him just for that. He's a dear friend of mine. I'd be really chuffed if you go and subscribe to his channel. So next up, Tom and Andy's channel, Vintage and Classic Metalwork. Now, Tom introduced me to TIG welding. Up until then, I was MIG welding everything. So thanks very much, Tom. Here's the favour return. I'm going to give your channel a plug now. So these guys have just moved into a new workshop, which happens to be right next door to the restoration place that I used to work in, Race and Restoration. And they've opened up a metalwork shop, and what they're showing on their channel is a very, very good overview of the type of work they're performing on their customers' cars and their own cars. And they're giving you a few tips and tricks as to how they're doing things as well. So I wish them all the best, and I hope to pop in and see them soon. I'll perhaps take my camera, and we'll have a bit of a guided tour around their shop and a bit of a chat to the guys. So that's Vintage and Classic Metalwork YouTube channel.
Yeah, sun's out, a little bit overcast, but
Matt Green, probably a guy that doesn't need much introduction on the YouTube circuit because he's already got plenty of subscribers. But if you haven't heard of him, then he's well worth checking out. He's done a bit of an urge fab, and he's got himself an old Metro shell and dumped it on the top of a Subaru 4-wheel drive and turned it into a 6 R4 replica rally car. And he's not new to this. He's been doing this kind of thing for the last few years, putting Vauxhall engines into minivans and dumping mini shells on the top of Subarus and all the rest of it. If you're interested in watching lots and lots of updates, he's constantly updating his channel. He's constantly uploading new stuff all the time. So if you're the sort of person that likes to follow a project and likes to watch an update, I mean practically every week, then Matt Green's the man for you, so go and subscribe to him.
Oh, pizza for dinner tonight, I think, and some pasta as well. What are you guys having?
Simon Quick's channel, Quick Bikes. As you can probably tell, it's all about bikes, but Simon's done some great metal shaping videos where he's taken on building his own English wheel and metal shaping equipment, and although he's a novice at it, he's made some good jobs. I think these kinds of channels are well worth looking into because they give you a taster of somebody that's not used to doing metal shaping, and they're building their own equipment and they're learning through building their own equipment and learning from the start. And he comes across as such a nice, genuine guy. I mean, this guy's a pretty switched on engineer as well, mechanic, and I mean, just watching that is enough. But I quite like the fact that he's built his own English wheel and he's got a folding machine and stuff like that, and he's done really well. So that's Quick Bikes.
Coffee, grab a coffee. No.
Next up, David Iggulden's channel, Magna Machine Works. Him and Simon actually share similarities because David's also building his own metal shaping equipment and he's getting some fantastic results from it too. So that's another channel well worth checking out, Magna Machine Works. Although I've got plenty more channels I'd like to plug, this is going to be the last one for today. I'll plug the other channels on the part 2 video. So the last one today is going to be Alex Does. Now Alex Does used to be called Alex Does DIY. Now I've been following this guy for years, and his first videos that I watched were him building his own plastics moulding machine in his garage at home. He used to do a flurry of videos and then disappear for about 6 months, and then you get an update on the project and his life. Unfortunately, he got split up from his wife, so they went their own separate ways, and he was kind of in this sort of situation, and I can picture myself and many of my friends being in the same situation if something like this happened, where you're basically in a trap between a rock and a hard place because you can't borrow enough money to buy your own place. You're going to be renting something, so you're going to be renting something, you're going to be trapped in a job that you can't stand. But he had a bit of equity out of his house, so rather than comply with what society dictates, old Alex goes off and he goes and buys a coach and converts it into a mobile home. So he's basically living in this coach that he converted fantastically well, living off the land, fishing and all the rest of it. Fair play to you, Alex. I commend you for doing this because not many people would have the guts to do this. They just toe the line and get a job and be miserable, but not Alex. He's making fantastic videos about trekking and camping out in the wilds and all the rest of it, and they are absolutely fantastic videos. So that's Alex Does. Please check him out.
See how we go. Here I've just got self-raising flour and butter and a little bit of salt. Jeez. Oh, I put the bones out of that one. Oh, I think I put too much water in. Oh, I finally lost my band-aid. There's my finger, check that out. I'll make you hungry. There we go. That looks alright, eh? Go. Set up in the gas Mark 5. Come back in half an hour or 20 minutes so I can see what that looks like. Alright, it's been about 40 minutes. Although it wouldn't be Alex Does DIY if the bread doesn't come out burnt, I think. Oh. have a look. Have a go at that. Oh man, it smells good. Have a go at that, eh? Oh, it's hot. Hot, 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 hot. Oh god, that smells yum. Could I be 2 for 2 on the cooking on this trip? Uncharacteristically, I haven't brought any butter. Normally I don't leave home without it, but anyway, let's see what this is like. It's very hot. Oh.
I'll put a link in the video description to all of those channels so you can go and check them out. My next video is going to be more questions answered, so there's going to be things like how can I form a lip on a panel and make it curved without a shrinker or a stretcher, how metal behaves differently on a convex to a concave panel when you stretch it or shrink it, and differences in hammers and spoons when to use them, and a few other things besides, I'm sure. So that's going to come up pretty quickly, and then as soon as that one's been uploaded, I'm going to work on finishing off my neon sign series. I should be able to rattle through those quite quickly, and I should be able to get back to more consistent videos. It's been really hard over the last year, but as they say, we're in unprecedented times. So until then, which won't be long away, I'll say bye for now.
It's the Electric Radio Show. It's the time of the show when we turn the spotlight onto a notable, whether it's a musician, artist, painter, writer, filmmaker, whoever it is. We give you props for your project, and all you got to do is just go to theelectricradioshow.com, click on the banner for the Underground Spotlight, give us all the deets. Who knows, we could be picking you. But this time around, because we've been out on the road for a month, and we're still trying to catch up on our emails. We're still trying to catch up on things. It's been busy. And we'll be back to the music on the Underground Spotlight, or author, whoever comes up next week. But this time around, you guys know I'm huge YouTuber. I watch and listen to YouTube constantly. There is a YouTuber out there. You guys heard me talk about Cameron Nemel on this show. He's the guy that basically got me into doing powder coating, and he's like the driving force that got me into Viper powder coating. There's another guy out there, and our UK affiliates, he could probably catch the show because he's in the United Kingdom. And he is like an extremely talented fabricator. He's a fabricator, and he's restored cars. He does welding tips and all this stuff on there, and I have benefited from this guy's YouTube channel more than he even knows. And I've corresponded with him through messages like on Instagram. This guy's name is Trevor Hatton, and he's got a YouTube channel out there called Trev's Blog. And if you go to that, if you're even remotely interested in restoring cars or maybe your bike or whatever you do in metalwork, this dude lays it out completely simple for you to understand. I mean, I'm no stretch a welder by any, I'm a certified welder, but I'm not a welder. This dude shows you how to take like just basic hand tools, make panels, do everything. Trevor is probably one of the most incredibly talented guys I've ever seen.
Wow.
The pay it forward now is he and his wife have started up a new business in the UK. Trevor restored this old Bedford van. This thing was a Hulk, and he brought this thing into a mobile catering business. And he just put in a coffee machine that looks like yours.
Oh, yeah?
At Mama Musetti's.
Wow.
And I said, I got to give this man some love. Him and his wife just started a YouTube channel for their business called The Baking Bird. And check them out on YouTube It's the Baking Bird UK. Facebook at the Baking Bird UK. Instagram at the Baking Bird UK. I just want to give these two people my congratulations. I'm wishing you the biggest success in the United Kingdom with this, because he made a cup of coffee in the first video upload. I wanted a cup. And it was just like at Andre's place. He did the espresso, he did the foaming the foaming milk
lattes,
man. And so the same way that we advertise for each other, our businesses here, I want to send my love to Trevor Hatton and his wife Tracy, wishing you all the best of luck in the world with the Baking Bird. And again, well, first off, let me give him a round of applause. Go to the Baking Bird UK on Instagram. You'll see the pictures of the Bedford that Trevor put together for this. And if you go to Trev's blog, you can see the entire metamorphosis of this project that went on in a series of YouTube videos. And he keeps his videos short. They're like 15 minutes.
That's awesome.
So they're very watchable. Trevor's a very entertaining guy. So it's Trev's blog for the restorations and fabrications. Go check him out. And the Baking Bird UK on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Subscribe, like, share, and give these people some love. They absolutely deserve it. Trev's a great guy, and every time I hit him up for information, boom. I'm telling you,
that's so
halfway
cool.
around the world, man, this man hits me right back. So congratulations to Trev and Tracy Hatton. I wish you all the best on your new venture called the Baking Bird. Coming up, now that app turns me on.
Oh, boy.
So D-Light's looking at me going, now that story is going to be dirty. She knows me well. That's coming up on the Electric Radio Show.